Okay, so we are live and good evening. So tonight, I want you to think of the person you despise the most. Okay, the person you really, really cannot stand, person you really don't get along with, and think what would the Torah say to do with this person. Okay, so you have in your mind for this class somebody you really cannot stand. Okay, don't go out of your mind, but you cannot stand this person. Now, what do you do with this person? So the Torah this week discusses an open mutiny, an open rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so Korach, his cousin, went through an entire rebellion against Moses. He went and got 250 heads to collaborate against Moses, against Moshe Rabbeinu. And the end of the story obviously was that Korach and his entire place, the earth swallowed them up alive, and that was the end of them, which I'm not going to get into now. But I want to share one verse over here, which is a tremendous, sheds tremendous power on this whole thing, tremendous light. So let me share the screen right over here. You should have the Chumash in front of you. Okay. So during the whole story, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, God speaks to Moses saying, Daber el ha'ida lemor. God says, speak to the congregation. He'alu misaviv lemishkan Korach, Datan ve'Aviram. Go up from the territory, the Mishkan, with the dwelling place of Korach, Datan ve'Aviram. Meaning God said to Moses, I am fed up, I've had enough. Remember, this is also after a few verses previously, that by Daber Hashem Moshe lemor, he badlu mitoch ha'ida azot, go away from them. And God and Moses pleaded, please, save them, etc., etc., etc. Not just that, but we read also there's a verse which says, "Vayishlach Moshe." Moses sent likro leDatan ve'Aviram. He went to call Datan ve'Aviram bnei Eliyav. Vayamru lo na'aleh. And Rashi says, "Vayishlach Moshe mikan she'en machzikim b'machloket." From here we learn that you don't hold with an argument. But this verse over here is exceptional, the one that I had before, and it says like this. God says to Moses, I've made my final decision. Speak to everybody and go away from the Mishkan of Korach, Datan, ve'Aviram. What does Moses do? Moses defies a direct order from God. Vayakam Moshe, Moshe gets up. Vayelech el Datan ve'Aviram. He goes to Datan ve'Aviram. Remember, the verse before said Moses was told by God, He'alu misaviv leMishkan Korach, which means go away from Datan ve'Aviram. And here Moses defies a direct order from God. He goes to Datan ve'Aviram. Vayelchu acharav ziknei Israel, the entire Jewish ziknei Israel, the leaders, the elders of the Jews, went after Moses. Vayakam Moshe. So the Talmud says like this. Talmud you have it in front of you over here. Vayakam Moshe. It's like right in the middle. You know what? I'm going to put it right over here. It's the first line on the top of the page. Vayakam Moshe, vayelech el Datan ve'Aviram. Amar Rish Lakish says, Mikan, from here we learn out, she'ein machzikim b'machloket. From here we learn out that you do not persist with arguments. Now let's just put this into perspective for a second, okay? Moses, right? Moses was a person who had arch enemies. Datan ve'Aviram weren't just people who got up one day and said, oh, we don't like you, Moses, we'll join the rebellion with Korach. That wasn't who they were. You know who they were? Moses was at this time at the height of his career. Moses suffered from these people his entire life. Okay, let me go back. The first time we meet Datan ve'Aviram was about 60 or probably 70 years earlier when Moses was a young man. It says in the Torah one day he goes out and he sees an Egyptian striking his friend. Striking a Jew, and he looks and he sees the Egyptian wants to kill him. The whole story was the Egyptian slept with his wife, the Jew's wife, the previous night, Shlomit bat Ivri, without getting into all those details. But Moses goes and he kills the Egyptian. The next day he sees one Jew about to strike another Jew, and he says, "Vayomer larasha lama takerecha." He says to the Rasha, the evil one, "Why do you want to hit your friend?" So he says, "Halargeni ata omer, are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" So Moses was very afraid that they would tell Pharaoh. Who were these two people? Datan ve'Aviram. That was Moses' first introduction to Datan ve'Aviram. As a direct result of that introduction, Datan and Aviram went to tell Pharaoh that Moses killed an Egyptian. Moses, his prince, the guy who lived in his house, killed an Egyptian. Pharaoh sentenced Moses to death. Only by God making a miracle that the executioner and everybody around were blinded and he couldn't kill him because his neck turned into marble. Moses ran away and he went to Africa and he went to Midian where he met his wife. And only 60 years, 70 years later, when he's now 80 years old at the burning bush, God tells him, you can go back. And Moses says, what do you mean? What about the people who want to kill me? God has to placate Moses and tell him that Datan and Aviram died. It doesn't mean died, it means they became poor, and a poor person is considered like a dead person. But the point is, Moses had to be placated. So that's the first time. Every single time there was trouble in the desert, every single time, it was a direct result of Datan and Aviram. The next time we actually meet them is the story of the man, right? The man falls from heaven. This is the food which tastes like anything you want. Moses gives a direct order to all the millions of Jews. Please do not leave over any food for the next day. Every single Jew obeys Moses except for two people, Datan and Abiram. It says, Vayichar leMoshe me'od. Moses was angry. Imagine having people who undermine you at every single opportunity. The next time we meet them is with the story of the spies. The spies went to Israel. They came back with a disfavorable report. And the two people who were instigating were telling everybody, let's not go and let's not go. And Nitna Rosh v'Nashuva Mitzrayim, and Moses is trying to kill us in the desert. Who were they? Datan and Aviram. And these are just the three times the Torah tells us clearly about them. But there are other times that they just clearly are disruptive. They clearly are arch enemies of Moses. They try to undermine him at every single turn, at every single step. So finally, during the rebellion of Korach, Datan and Abiram now, there's a mutiny, let's join. So finally, God himself has had enough. And God says, let's destroy them. Go away from them. Imagine you have an arch enemy. Imagine you have somebody who you really, really despise. What does God say? God has had enough. Moses uses this opportunity one last time, as we read in the verse. One last time he goes to Datan and Abiram and he begs them from the depths of his heart. He says, please don't do this. Please return. You know, there's a story told about the Ruzhine Rebbe. So there was a Jew living in the town of Ruzhin. His name was Menashe. They used to call him the Menashe the Informer. He was a traitor to his people. He was what's called a moiser. A moiser means he went to the government and reported on Jews. The worst of the worst. There's nothing worse than reporting to the government on fellow Jews. He used to instigate trouble at every single opportunity. So one time, there was another Jew living in town. His name was Beryl. Beryl was a simple Jew who loved the Ruzhine Rebbe. And at every opportunity he went and he just stared at the Ruzhine Rebbe. He loved him so much. And one time before Yom Kippur, he had an urge, a craving to see the Rebbe because he loved him so much. So he went to his door, and even though it was a time when the Ruzhine Rebbe would not normally see people, but he really wanted to see him. So anyway, when the Ruzhine Rebbe went outside and he saw Beryl, he said to Beryl, Beryl, you love me, right? Beryl said yes. So you should know, the Ruzhine Rebbe said, that I love every single Jew, even a Jew like Menashe the Informer, 10 times as much as you love me. And I'm only a human being. Can you imagine how much God loves every single Jew, even Menashe the Informer? Even that Jew who you hate the most, who you despise the most. What do we do with them? How do we handle them? By showering them with an extra dose of love. Even when God himself said, I've had enough. Moses went up, one last opportunity. Moses knew he was right. Moses knew they were wrong. God sided with him. God sided with Moses. He didn't need a greater proof to know that I am right in this argument. And yet, what did Moses do? He went over to them one more time, because it doesn't matter if I'm right. That's not the point. The point is to try love a fellow Jew as much as possible. One time there was a rabbi who had a dispute with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he said something in public against the Rebbe, and then afterwards he saw that he was wrong, so he wrote a letter of apology. And in the letter he wrote that I hope the Rebbe doesn't bear a grudge against me. So the Rebbe wrote back, I don't have time for grudges. If I have time, it's to do good and more good and more good in the world, but I definitely do not have time for grudges. This coming Wednesday night, Thursday, is the yahrzeit, the 26th yahrzeit of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's one thing the Rebbe taught us more than anything else, it's to love a fellow Jew. Hitler brought hatred to every single Jew. Wherever they are, he killed them. The Rebbe taught us, search every single Jew, wherever they are. I don't care where you find them. And when you find them, bring them love. And more love. And more love. This is very, very, very difficult to accomplish. It's easy to love the Jews who are far removed from us. It's much harder to love the Jews who irk us, who we despise. But this is the lesson we learn. Every single Jew, think who they are, and we need to love them and love them and love them. Hope you enjoyed. Hope everybody has a wonderful night. Join us every night, 7:30 p.m. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask away, or call me or WhatsApp me, or talk to me later. If you want to come to the oil with me on Wednesday, please join me. Thursday morning, sorry. Okay, Laila Tov.